This car is the most honest car you ever see.
It's been a dream ever since I've had it.
The first time I heard that engine screaming, I thought, I gotta have one of those.
For me, the cars have personality.
What's great about a BMW Classic is the community that surrounds it.
When you listen to that, that's why we're here.
Hello and welcome. This is JP and you tuned in to the latest episode of Classic Heart, the BMW Group Classic podcast. We took a little break between the Christmas holidays and now we start into the year with an episode full of laughter and fun. I can promise you that, because our guest today is Paul Howse, designer and artist. And you know what? Paul is not only a car collector, he's also the one who designed the legendary McLaren P1. Paul, welcome to Classic Heart.
Morning, JP. How are you doing?
I'm very well. You know, we just got out of Christmas. We just had a good time over a little break over New Year's. So a fresh new start. And you being the first guest in our new season. I think that's very exciting. And we look into a super exciting year, I hope. And let's see what the year will bring. First of all, Paul, we need to clarify something.
Yeah.
Did you ever wanted to become a designer?
Well, I think I always knew I wanted to work with cars. My father has always worked with cars, and growing up, you know, he was a race car technician. And it was just, I was surrounded by cars all the time. So I knew that was from an early age, that was what I wanted to do. I think like most kids who are into cars, I was drawing my own cars, but I didn't realize that there was an opportunity for a designer to be a job, you know, a real job, probably until I was in my mid-teens, like maybe 15. I was very lucky. My father was working at McLaren at the time, so he worked on all the F1s. And
good job, though.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to do 2 weeks work experience at McLaren. So it was very, very small back then, even smaller than when I joined. But it opened my eyes, and there was a designer working there. There was, technical graphics team, and I was open. The doors were opened. I was like, oh wow, you can actually do this as a job. So then I went back to school, and I knew I wanted to either do car design engineering or car design, you know, kind of the aesthetics. And I soon realized that I wasn't very good at maths. So maths was not my strong point. And I could kind of draw. I was okay at drawing. So that was the route I took. And yeah, so that from that point on, really, I was very focused on becoming a designer. And I wouldn't say I was ever the most talented artist in my year group, for example. There was other people who were better than me, but I worked extremely hard, and yeah, it kind of things happened.
I would like to speak about this way of you became a designer a bit later, but you just mentioned you were 15.
Yeah.
And with no offense, so how many years was that ago?
Out of 39 now, so 24. I told you maths wasn't my strong point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This was just a test for it, because I bet at this, I always rely on my guest. But in this case, no, what I just want to say, you just mentioned McLaren was even smaller than when you started. And we go into this whole McLaren chapter of your life also a bit later on. But how was it? How was the atmosphere when they built the F1?
What would that have been? 1997, something like that, I think. Yeah. So they were just finishing the very last F1s. In fact, I don't know whether I should say this or not, but one of the last F1s that was being built was Ron Dennis's car, his own car, which was super cool. You know, he was obviously, you know, he's the mastermind of McLaren at the time, and his car was being built, and it was literally like a race team building this car. You know, so it was in a small unit on the outskirts of Woking, very, very small team. Literally, I say like a race team, really, not like a car manufacturer at all. Yeah. So very small and very like a family, I would say, was the impression I got. Everyone knew each other, you know, from the guy who swept the shop floor, you know, right up to, you know, Gordon Murray and Barry Lett. You know, everyone knew each other.
And was that also the time when you met Peter Stevens?
No, I didn't actually meet Peter then. He'd already moved on at that point. I first met Peter at the Royal College of Art when I was studying my master's degree. he was a visiting lecturer. So that was pretty cool as well to have him there and all his experience.
I mean, the connection is quite crazy. Your father being a racing engineer at McLaren, then you do a little, let's call it a short-term internship at McLaren.
Yeah.
Then you realize it's possible to create cars and that there's really someone who needs to design them. This makes you going to study, is it transportation design or what do you study?
Yeah, so it was transportation design at Northumbria University in the north of England. Mm-hmm. And then my master's degree at the Royal College of Art down in London.
Meeting another McLaren personality or someone who has like a close relation with the McLaren.
Yeah.
I think your destiny was McLaren.
I think so. I do think that sometimes. I definitely believe in fate and, karma and all those sorts of things. So I think it was something was connected. But yeah, my father, when I was studying, my father had left McLaren at that point and gone to work for Gordon. So when I was finishing my studies, there was no longer a direct link. And I never dreamed that. Even then, I never thought I would be working for McLaren. At that time, there were rumours of McLaren Automotive, the new company, being started, but I didn't really know much about it. There was just these rumours. So it was never really in my vision to work for McLaren because it didn't really exist as a company then.
Yeah.
I was studying my master's in 2007, 2008. So McLaren Automotive wasn't launched as a company at that point.
But was McLaren your first stop after the uni?
It was, yeah. It took a while.
That's crazy.
So I graduated, 2008. I had interviews with Lotus and Jaguar Advanced and Kiska and Design Storz in Austria. And then it was 2008, so it was the hiring freeze. It was the financial crash. Everyone was freezing. So I couldn't get a job. I was thinking, oh my God, I'm going to have to find another career, at least for the short term while the world gets back on its feet. And then I randomly got this phone call out of the blue by this American guy, Frank Stephenson, who was the design director at McLaren at the time. And I thought it was one of my friends playing a joke on me. I didn't believe him at first. So come in for an interview. That was Christmas 2007. That would have been. I came in for an interview and I started in March 2008. So, it was it was literally out of the blue. Frank and Mark Roberts came to my degree show in the summer of 2008. So, yeah.
You see, and it's always good to do degree shows. Because sometimes I have friends who studying car design as well, and they said it's an awful lot of work, but sometimes it pays off. And I think Paul is a good example for this.
Absolutely. You never know I think it's the same with life. I still find it now with my artwork. You never know who's going to see you, who's going to be there. They might not even talk to you,
Yeah.
But if they see your work and they like it, it triggers something in them. They'll remember. And so it's so important to have these degree shows. And I think also, as much as it is tiring to be there all week, every day, all day, every day, from early in the morning to late at night, you've got to do it because you just never know who is going to roll up.
I mean, so you said that when you received that call around Christmas at that time, and you thought first it's a little prank of one of your pals. Yeah. So how did you balance it in terms of making sure that you don't maybe overstep because it could be Frank Stephenson? So how was the situation in that call?
It didn't take too long for me to actually work. It was just that, that first instant. I was like, no, it's not. No, it really isn't. I was like, oh my God.
I mean, he's famous for carrying his heart on the tongue, right? So, I mean, how was it how did the interview went?
Yeah, the interview was, it went really well, as far as I can remember. It was quite daunting, especially, as I say, as a fresh green behind the ears graduate, driving into McLaren, the big gates and driving through and getting your pass. And then you go through the James Bond tunnel and pop up through the elevator, the glass elevator. So it was all kind of quite scary. And then, Frank's, he's a lovely, personable guy. So he very, very quickly made you feel at ease. And we just chatted, and I showed him my work, and it was very informal. And then, I got invited back for a second interview a few weeks later. Just formality, I think, really. And and then he offered me the job. So it was cool.
What did you do on the evening when you knew you got the job?
I haven't told many people this. I bought a very cheap bottle of sparkling wine and I race drivered myself. So I sprayed the champagne.
Fantastic. I mean, that's so lovely. It's another example that you need to be good with yourself, because only if you love yourself, you can celebrate also with yourself when no friends are around at that point.
Exactly.
Oh, that's so cool. I mean, I think, how could you describe it? That is a so natural reaction. I really can feel it why you did it. I mean, also, again, coming in with that legacy, your family connection in the past and all these kind of things. And I mean, working for this new company, right? Really freshly company. That must be a big deal. And I think we now, because otherwise everyone who's tuned in will kill us, but we need to speak about the P1.
Yeah.
So for those who maybe lived on a different planet as the supercar world, it's for sure that indisputable, one of the most drastic designs in hypercars was the P1 at that time, also the position of the car. And let me ask, who designed it? Who drew the lines?
So it was my theme. So my idea for the exterior, but then obviously, it's not just one person, it's a big team of people. Yeah, obviously Frank was the design director, but then you had Rob Melville, who was the senior designer, sort of the level above me. And he really held my hand a lot with tuning and refinement of the idea, because the idea was very raw. I look back at some of the early drawings and they're very, quite naive and quite raw, but the theme was liked, and I was very lucky. I had a very good alias modeler who was working with me, a guy called Ryan Carapel. He's, I think, one of the best in the industry. And he was very young. We were both all of us were very young, but he understood what I was trying to do. So he helped me create this theme, and it went into theme selection. So there was not many. Yeah, there was Rob. So Rob Melville was the senior. He had a theme. I had a theme. I think Frank did one as well. And I can't remember if there was any others or not. But anyway, it was theme selection, and Anthony Sheriff and Ron Dennis liked my one. So it was super cool. Unbelievable. I still look back now and I can't really believe it. It was, sort of fresh out of university. And I guess part of that is that's why you get young designers in. They're fresh, they're full of spirit, full of creativity. They might not know, all the ins and outs of how a car goes together, but they've got a spirit. So that's why young designers are so important in a studio. Yeah.
Was it two bottles of champagne after you won the pitch?
I can't remember. I think we must have had a few drinks. I think, but there was
Fair.
no more race driving. But I think there's three key points. One is when your theme gets selected, that's like an amazing feeling. Then when you get the first full size clay model back from being milled, and you see this thing moving, being unloaded from the lorry, and it's your thing that you've dreamt of and has been created by a team of people. It rolls out from the lorry and it's moving, and all the shadow, the reflections are bouncing off it, even just in clay. You can still, it's just incredible. And then obviously the launch, when it's launched to a motor show or a press event, they're all incredible highs. There's a lot of lows that go with it as well, but the highs are pretty high.
Yeah, it's very rewarding. Would you say so?
Yeah, very rewarding. Yeah.
I mean, it's so cool to see something you created. Even it takes a long time, but it came out of your inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really crazy. That's like really like every artist feels a little bit. And even though I know that designers sometimes don't like to be called artists, and the other way around, artists would never be called designers. But I think the process is quite similar in a sense that something which is on the backdrop of your brain, of your mind, of your soul, is translated through pen. and then become reality after many, many steps between, but then become reality. That's just crazy, no?
Yeah, it is. I'm a creative person. Obviously, I love the creative process, and I think it is the same throughout any creative process.
Yeah.
Whether it's, like, say, design, art, or whatever.
Speaking of the process, I mean, in the beginning, there must be somehow a little brief, right?
Yeah.
Before, so if we could we just be, I mean, the P1 changed so many things. So I would like to, sorry for being so enthusiastic about it, but I'd really like to understand how the process works. So what was the design brief?
I still remember Anthony Sheriff giving us the brief in the first meeting, and it was quite simply to design the fastest, most beautiful car that's ever been. That was his brief.
Yeah.
Which sounds very simple. But when you've then got, let's say, the target for downforce was 600 kilos at 120 miles an hour, I think, which back then was crazy. I know you've got GT3 RS now producing probably similar or more.
Yeah.
But back then there was no real proper downforce cars. There'd never been a real downforce car. So there's cars with wings, but they don't do anything. This was proper downforce. Yeah, they look good. Yeah, but that creates a big restriction on beauty.
Yeah,
aerodynamics. Low drag generally gives beautiful forms, but downforce is kind of it's a difficult one. And then you've got obviously a power output to achieve with a twin turbo hybrid car. So lots of cooling restrictions. So all these things get then added into the pot. So you've got this, the end result has to be the most beautiful, fastest car ever produced. But then you've got all these other bits that get all these ingredients that have to be fitted in. I was quite lucky, I guess, because of my background with my dad on it. I had a fair technical understanding. He'd probably say otherwise, but I had a fairly good understanding of the technical side of things. So yeah, I started sketching, and you don't think about necessarily the downforce or the packaging. In the early stages, you just scattergun ideas off the top of your head. I mean, back then I still use pen and paper. Obviously a lot of guys these days now just go straight to on a tablet or a Wacom. But I still really believe in pen and paper. It's just the quickest way of getting. Even if the sketches are this big.
Yeah,
you can get an idea down really quick and get just real scattergun of ideas, and then you put them all up on the wall, and the senior designers and design directors come and they'll select the ideas that they like. You then take those again. You go off. You might have 10 then to develop, and then it goes down to 4, and then it goes down to 2, and then then you have one theme that you're developing, and you develop it in 3D alongside the other ones that are going along. So. Yeah, I've kind of gone off on a tangent there, but yes, there was the design.
Thank you very much. And so when you have this design brief, what's going through your mind? Do you think of science fiction? Do you think of whatever, the Jetsons? So please try to describe to us what's going on in your brain when you start sketching.
I guess you tend to fall back onto what you like yourself, like your own tastes. Certainly, if certainly with a brief like that, to create the most beautiful car in the world. Obviously, that is it's a subjective thing. I think there are rules for design, but the taste does come into it. I love historic cars, historic race cars. So I was looking at stuff from the really, I guess at that time I was looking at the early 70s sports prototypes. I was really into the Speed Merchants movie at the time. Throughout sort of my late teens and early 20s, I was just obsessed with the Speed Merchants. So the 72 Sports Car Championship, if you've never seen it, it's awesome. We had Lewis Hamilton's Formula One World Championship Formula One car in the studio at the time.
Yeah,
had crazy aerodynamics. I mean, just these little fingers and bits. Aerodynamic devices just hung off it everywhere. It was just, you'd never draw it, ever. It was just all obviously...
wings.
But each of those elements was very organic, almost like it's been eroded by the wind. And at the time, a lot of the design language for cars was quite edgy and angular. And we thought, there's all this incredible... It looks like it's been evolved by nature.
Yeah.
It sounds very cliche at the moment. just to say it was inspired by nature, but it genuinely was. We looked at that car and we thought, wow, this really has some real ties to the natural world, whether it's wind eroded cliffs or the shape of a shark or the shape of a bird's wing. It really was, it was so striking. So we thought actually that's a really good place to start McLaren's new design language from, because you've got this incredible inspiration already right in front of us. So I kind of took this mixture of the organic, I think we called it organic fluidity or something, but it was, this organic form language that we agreed as a team to try and pursue. I took that with my own personal inspirations of, like I say, the T33, very open back ends, literally there's nothing there. It's just, the gearbox and the tyres and the air going over the shoulders into the radiators, all these kind of things that I thought were quite cool. When I'd done this key sketch that became the back end of P1, I remember driving home one night after I'd kind of, I'd cracked it. I'd done that sketch. I was really pleased with it.
Yes.
And I remember driving home at night, late at night, and I just imagined it in front of me. I could see it driving down the road. It sounds really corny, but it's genuine. I remember thinking that's going to be so cool. It's got to happen. And luckily it did. So
mega.
Yeah, it's cool.
When you said like inspired by nature, I mean, I have to say it, maybe that's also a bit tacky now, but if I look at the rear wing, and you said inspired by nature by sharks, if I look at the rear wing, these famous photos of the blue whales when they have their back fin flapping over and hitting the water? This looks exactly like this when the fin on the back came out and hits back to the water. I think it reminds you of that one, but that might be tacky. But I totally agree. I mean, the organic form is there, absolutely. And I think that was also something new in a sense.
Yeah, and it was everything from, we noticed, and it was something that Rob picked up very early, was, the leading edge of any intake. So an intake for air on a car, generally they're all really chiseled and square. Yeah. But actually what it needs to be is round, like a bullnose section, so that the air attaches to it. And we noticed, quite quickly that all the most intakes on cars were square, so it was really not aerodynamic at all. So it started from that very front of the car, the very tip of all those leading edges being that sort of bullnose wing, sort of almost wing shape on its side. And that then translates through the whole rest of the car, and you've got these soft forms but tense, soft organic forms but have tension, and muscle tension. That was a big thing. We wanted this car to look very poised and agile and like an athlete, so that thread ran through the whole of the car. Yeah.
And anyone who's not in design, just enjoying good shapes and good forms, it's very interesting how the process all started.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the car became quite a hit, I would say. Was it a bit of a surprise to you as well? So were you overwhelmed by the buzz the car created when it was launched?
I think we're very pleased. I think with anything you do, anything you put in that much love and attention into, you hope that other people will get what you're doing and like it. Obviously, sometimes some things that are a little bit too wacky, or not too wacky, but things that are out there take a little while for people to get them. You think of the early Bangle BMWs, at the time they were kind of hated, but now I certainly see them as some of the best designs of recent times. But no, I think we were very pleased with the reaction, especially, the 12C had been launched, a year earlier?
Yes.
And, that had a very lukewarm reaction.
Yeah.
It was a very understated car. It looks great now, I think.
Yes.
But at the time, it did look a little bit dated. It'd been in gestation for a long time, so I guess that was part of the problem. But, so McLaren needed something really to springboard them into the supercar arena. And we hoped that the P1 was going to do that. And as I say, we were very happy with the reaction.
It obviously did that. What you described is a bit like the Destiny, like the 275 GTB Ferrari. Yeah. Now we love the car. When it came out, and it's a bit like the MC, when it came out, it was an outdated design.
Yeah.
Right? It was really like not a modern design. Now we love it because of it sits well, it's well balanced, golden cut, everything very nice. but I think things take time. Either they're not accepted because of they're too old, out of time, or they're too fast forward thinking, like you said with Bengel's 7 Series. I mean, the amount of shit he received for the 7 Series, it was unbearable. I have to say, I really liked it. Again, maybe a point of that my taste should not be the measurement or the scale. But now you see so many elements in car designs afterwards.
Absolutely.
I mean, and look at the 5 Series at that time as well.
Yeah.
This car still, if you see it on the road in London or in Zurich, even the Touring, it still looks so modern.
It looks so good. It's I think it's the best modern 5 Series. I've got a huge soft spot for the E28, but I think that Bengal 5 Series, especially I love the Touring. I think it's a great looking car. Like you say, the surfacing on the side, the surfacing that they were doing with on the 5, the 3, and the Z4, that then filtered in and influenced every single car for the next 10, 15 years.
100%.
The way
100%.
the surfaces were treated.
I mean, this was so forward thinking. I mean, but you made a decision to leave car design, right?
Yeah.
In a sense, and go to even more creative work in creating fantastic artworks, focus on cars.
Yeah.
Right? If it's right to say.
Yes.
So would you?
Yeah. The love of cars. So, yeah.
Yeah. Would you see yourself working in car design nowadays? Or rephrase, what was the reason why you left?
Well, the reason I left, to be blunt, was that I had burnt out. I had a breakdown at work, and it was too much. The pressure. I'd been promoted to manager, and so I burnt out, and I took some time out. It was prescribed by the doctor, time out.
Yeah.
And then I was very fortunate, and I'm sure it's a common story to a lot of people. Obviously, lockdown and COVID was a terrible thing, but it allowed me time. So actually, it was quite a good thing for me. I was furloughed, so I took time off and I started painting. And I reassessed things. I started to realise maybe I could make a bit of money from the painting, which I initially did just to support the lack of pay from being in COVID. And then I was actually part of the redundancies that McLaren, big redundancies that McLaren had to make during that time. But I was feel very blessed that I was found this path of painting, and I love it. It's great. However, would I go back to a big car design studio? I don't know. Never say never. I mean, I still do some freelance design work, which I'm actually really enjoying.
Yeah.
So
let's look at the artworks. Do you choose your motives, or is it also that can I come to you and say, hey, Paul, I'm a big fan of old Range Rovers and I really don't like the artwork out there. Could you do something for me?
Yeah, absolutely. That is the majority of my work now is commissions for people. People come to me they want painting of their car or their grandfather's car or whatever, and I love it because, in the early stage when I was just starting out, I was painting what I loved. And, whether it was doing most of my work that is on my website, that's print work, they are just subjects that I find interesting. So whether it's hot rods, belly tankers, my old tractor, Ferraris, it's just stuff that I like. Whereas the majority of my work that I do, the painting, I say it's commissions, and it's so varied. And I love the variety because I always use this example of a guy, I think he's Irish. I think he's an Irish guy. And he wanted me to do their family's Citroen C4 Sebastian Loeb edition. Okay. So remember back in 2005, something like that. It had dents on it. It had one white wheel, one silver wheel, but they wanted it painted as it was. I think it was probably about to get scrapped.
Yeah.
So they wanted to capture this car, and it must have cost them more than the car was worth to do this painting. But it was so cool, and trying to get all the little dents and scratches and all the imperfections. So to capture that,
yes.
So it's everything from that right up to the latest Ferrari supercars or McLaren supercars, old E-types and Ferrari 275s. There's huge variety. It's cool.
I love that because that shows exactly, and I mean that's the best evidence of love for a car has no limits in a sense.
Yeah, and that's what I love about cars, the passion for them. You know, it's just so broad. You know, it's such a broad church. And, you know, it doesn't matter what other people think. If you have a passion and a love for that particular type of car or vehicle, that's the coolest thing. You know, you get a buzz out of that. That's all that matters.
It's beautiful. And of course you have a relation to this car and you want to keep it. And I think that's really the beauty, which mostly, and then coming back to also social media, and, you know, there are so many influencers around. I don't name them now, but, you know, there's one, when she's talking, the first sentence she's saying is the price of a car. Look at this. This is a 30 million car. And I think, okay, people like it as well. Otherwise, these influencers wouldn't be that successful. Also clear.
Yeah.
But I think that's not what it's all about. And I'm not saying this because I cannot afford every car I want. I just say this because I met so many people that can afford every car they want. And they tell the same stories at the end. They tell you same stories with, this car I love because I had it on my poster wall in school or whatever.
Yeah.
And I really like it that you capture these moments with your work. Yeah,
no, definitely. And I agree with the whole influencer thing. I don't know, it just seems very grotesque and not very tasteful, not very nice, you know, ramming it down people's throats what they can't afford. It's not very
I see it the same way, but it works. Somehow it works. And so it's not me to judge, right? I don't like it and I can't understand it.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So speaking about things you like, you also have a little collection to break a secret. And this collection is also focused, no secret, a bit on BMWs.
Yeah.
Tell us more about what cars you have at the moment at your garage.
So at the moment, so my everyday car is an i3, which I love. I think
love it.
You know, from a design point of view, I think it is probably one of the best pieces of design of recent times as a holistic thing. You know, the conception, the materials,
everything.
They're just great, and they're so far ahead of their time. And I don't think there's anything been electric car wise. I don't think there's anything been to beat it since it was done. You know, as a holistic collection, a holistic design.
Yes.
I see everything else
if I jump on that one, because I just have to say the best interior concept in a compact class.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, that was the reason I bought it. Was it had to have the wood, and it for me, it's the best interior of recent times, I think, and I love it. So, but it is annoying because before I bought that, my daily driver cars were always 1980s, generally German cars, whether it's BMW E28s or Porsche 944, but I used to change my cars every sort of 6 months, and I love the chase of buying an old car.
Yes.
But then in buying the i3, it was obviously more expensive than some of the older cars. So, and it's so good, I can't sell it. So now my daily driver, I normally change it every 6 months. And now I have to keep it. So it's stopped that one habit, which I think my wife's quite happy about, but it's frustrating me because I keep looking on the classifieds to find new things and I can't buy them. So, but that's my daily driver. I also have a Z1, which my wife and I bought. When was that? It was 2010. It was the year we got married. So we've had that a long while now, which we love. It's a super cool car. And then I've got a 2002 Touring, so 1971 2002 Touring, which is in 1,000 pieces, being restored at the moment.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So my dad's building me a nice engine for it now. We're putting a straight six in it, so it's going to be a little bit hot rodded, a little bit hopped up, but that's going to be cool. I'm looking forward to getting that back. I love that thing. They're so lovely to drive. Yeah, they're very nice things.
And totally for a long time, the Z1. Highly underrated in the interest. People were like, when it came out, of course, I grew up in Hamburg, which is quite like a wealthy city.
Yeah.
And Hamburg, it was the city of where you see all 993 Porsches, everything. Mm-hmm. And then when the Z1 came out, you saw all these cars around in front park with the nicest cafes and stuff like this.
Yeah.
But then they got somehow forgotten a little bit.
Yeah.
But what is what you like about the Z1? And more interesting as well for me is, what does your wife like on the Z1? If you can tell.
Yeah, no, I think what she likes is that it is so unusual and quirky, but it's understated.
Yeah.
In a way. I think she loves the innovation in the car, which I do as well. I mean, personally, I love a lot of the geeky stuff that no one probably realizes. All the aerodynamics on it, the fact that it's got a negative bonnet. The bonnet is actually negative and into positive up over the windscreen to try and create a little bit of downforce. Yeah. So next time you see one, have a look. It's actually got a negative bonnet, and that goes up over the windscreen. The exhaust is the shape of an aerofoil for part of the underfloor aerodynamics. It's got a flat floor. All this are really cool, and then the materials that it used, all the composites. So I love all that. It's like a concept car on the road. That's sort of the reason. And the wheel arches. The beautifully highlighted box arches. They're I think, obviously I love E30 M3 Audi Quattro, and Delta Integrale, but the way the highlights run on a Z1 wheel arches, they're just beautiful. That's what I love about it. Yeah.
Paul, we need to create a new podcast, which is like Paul explains cars. Because, I mean, the most obvious fact of the BMW Z1, if you ask anyone, is, oh, look at the doors.
The doors.
And I mean, again, to be fair,
is a big thing. Driving with the doors down at 80 miles an hour is the best.
Big. Yeah. What I also like is the flashy interior, like this camouflage. I couldn't know how to describe it. Like camouflage in friendly, camo leather in friendly colors.
Yeah, definitely. And the instrument binnacle as well. It's kind of like a motorcycle where you've got the only thing is, for me, it's a bit of a shame because the speedo is larger than the rev counter. It'd be nice if they were the other way around.
I mean, you can be so lucky that you got one, because I think that's going to change. At least after that podcast, this is going to change because everyone wants to have the negative bonnet. Don't care about the doors; it's just a negative bonnet. I can't get over the fact that really, like, again, I love it that there's no mention of the doors. Come on, the doors. I mean, the board must be very brave at that time to say we do that, put that car on the road.
Must have been amazing. It's so far when you look at what the rest of the BMW range was at that time.
Exactly.
The E34 5 Series had just come out. The E30, everything was the shark nose. It was very square, beautifully proportioned, very crisp.
Yes.
But then the Z1, when that came out in '87, it must have been so far ahead of its time. Like really, really cool. So, a real leap of faith by the board. I can't imagine it made them much money, but very glad that they did it.
Definitely. So, and then you mentioned the 2002 Touring.
Yeah.
Why did you choose a Touring? I mean, it's a very odd-looking car.
Yeah, it is a bit odd-looking. It's weird. I quite like odd things, so it's probably not. Maybe I should have chosen the coupe or an Alfa 105, but to be quite blunt, they were too expensive at the time. They were double the price of the Touring at that point. I thought, well, if people used these in the 70s, then, why can't I use it every day now? Obviously, it had been taken apart a few times, and maybe it wasn't to the standards that it came out of the factory in Munich in 1971. It broke down a lot, which is a real shame. But again, luckily my dad is an expert mechanic, and we fixed a lot of the things that previous owners, all these terrible repairs that previous owners had done on the poor thing. So I love it, and I loved. It is a bit of a funny shape, but it was very practical for me. I could fit my mountain bike in the back, so I can, the hatch goes up, seats go down. Put my mountain bike in and go off, twin 40s snarling away. I thought, should I have sold it and got a sedan instead? But I like the Touring. I like from the back. I think I prefer it. It's the Michelotti sort of design. It's got a kind of Italian feeling, almost like a Fiat of the time. Mm-hmm. The side view, the proportions are a bit funny. Yeah, but it's still a super cool car, and it's so rare. There are 20 in the UK, I think. So I like that. That's crazy. Well. I like rarity.
So if you know that a car is the best drive of your life, it is really it's driving like nothing else in the world, but the design is not right, would that join the garage?
No, absolutely not.
Oh,
you'd have to drive with a paper bag on my head, which isn't very good for visibility. No, I think for me, design is so important, and it's not for. I'm not bothered about what people think. You look back at my car history. I've had some very strange things. I'm not bothered what people think. It's what I love. What I love to. I look at the car. It's sat in the garage, or it's sat on the forecourt after you've just filled it with £100 worth of petrol. Do you look back at it and give you a buzz? That gives me such a buzz.
Yeah.
At the same time, I don't think I would want to own a car that drives terribly but looks amazing. Then it is literally just a paperweight. And actually, I don't think that's good design either. That is styling. And I think, for good design has to be something holistic.
But you mentioned also that you were looking back in the cars you owned. We haven't spoken about that. So what are some of these precious metals you owned in the past?
So my first car was a 1966 Singer Chamois, which is a variant of the Hillman Imp. It was the luxury version of the Hillman Imp.
Yes.
Which was a fantastic car. My dad was really into imps. He used to build rally engines on them before I was born. So he's got a big fan of that engine.
Yeah.
So that kind of rubbed off on me. It's an all aluminium engine. They rev to 8,000-9,000. They handle really well. They're super cool.
Looking is excuse me, and I mean saying, my first car was a Singer. Oh no, not too bad. You do well, my friend. Nowadays, but I think we need to clarify. It's not the Porsche guys. It's not Porsche Singer. It's not Rob and his team. No, there was actually a brand called Singer, which did also in Germany, I think, sewing machines.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
they was
originated
everything.
Doing sewing machines.
Okay, so that was the first one.
Yeah, I won't list everything, but
highlights.
Other highlights. I had a Nissan Cube, a Generation 1 Nissan Cube, which I did my internship in Japan, in Tokyo. So I lived in Tokyo for 3 months, and they were out. I think it was probably just the end of the first gen Cube was out then, and it was just so cool. I loved it.
Yeah.
I've had 3 E28 BMWs. I had 2 525 ETA and 1 M535. Citroen C6. That was I loved having that. That was very cool. Incredible car. One of the reasons I bought that was because my ex-boss, Rob Melville, he hated that car. Really, really detested it. And it was a big joke in the design studio how much he hated it. So myself and another designer, Esteban, we used to say how much we loved it. And it used to really wind him up. So that was kind of part of the reason for buying that, was to wind Rob up. I think he's kind of softened a bit now these days. He quite likes it these days, I think. But at the time, it was very funny.
What a great reason to own a car. I love it. So for everyone listening in, if you want to really, really annoy your boss or your manager, find out what car he or she really doesn't like, and then go for it. Love it. I think that's actually a very brave car and classic collection, I would say.
It's quite varied.
Absolutely. Imagine you see a P1 turning up at the road, and the person driving it behaves really like a rude, like a not nice person.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Such a person is driving your car, in a sense, your car in brackets.
I'd probably think they're an absolute idiot, using polite words.
Yeah.
And I'd probably think they don't deserve such a thing. But I mean, obviously the majority of time, like in society, most people are lovely and friendly, but occasionally you do get some idiots driving nice cars, but I still appreciate the cars. It's the car first and foremost. That's what draws you in. And then if you get chatting to someone and they're super friendly and like-minded, that creates a really special, I think, bond and experience. But if they're a bit of an idiot and they don't want to talk to you, then it's their loss in my view. I can still appreciate their car if it's tastefully done.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we try to give also a little bit of advice to those who listen to our podcast. May it be a nice road to drive and stuff like this. For you, we choose a question which is a career question because we hope that also a young audience is attracted to classic art. And my question would be, what is your advice to young people starting their career and they would like to pursue or to follow a career in car design? So what are the do's and don'ts in the first steps? What would you say?
Yeah, I think probably first of all, the most important thing would be to find a course that suits you as a person. Don't necessarily follow what is deemed the best course, for car design, for example.
Yeah.
I went to Northumbria University. The best course in the UK was Coventry. But I went there and it didn't suit me. It was very big. There was lots of, it was like 100 students in a year. It was very unpersonable. Whereas Northumbria, there was 15 students per year. A super passionate course leader named John Sweeney, who now works at Pforzheim. He and the city was what made me choose that course. And it set my foundations for probably who I am and certainly who I am as a designer. It was very focused on creative thinking. It didn't have the best links with industry. It didn't have, it wasn't particularly well known outside of the UK, but it suited me. And I think for anything I do, you got to trust in your gut. And, it was something where I could thrive. And I think that's what you should do is choose somewhere where you feel you will thrive and you'll forge your own path. I think if you work hard enough, which you have to work hard, nothing will be given to you on a plate. That's just a fact of life. You have to work hard. And if you work hard and believe in what you do, then you'll succeed. I think that's probably my best advice.
I think it's a great one. Thank you very much. And also, Paul, thank you very much for being super open and that we had so much insight about the creative process of building, which now has become a very important car of automotive history. All these kind of things and the fun. Thank you very much for your time.
No,
I
absolute
really
pleasure.
enjoyed it, and we could on go forever.
I could talk all day.
Absolutely. So everyone, thank you very much for joining for this episode of Classic Heart. And as usual, we needed a bit of your support. If you like what we're doing, of course, you should hit the subscribe button to not miss out any of our new episodes. And we're producing with fun and passion. And also, if you leave a comment what we should do better or what you liked, we are happy to read about this and also give us a nice rating then. Paul, thank you very, very much for joining.
My pleasure.